is Shira, and this is your Virgo Rising 2022 astrological outlook. And to begin with Virgo Rising, we've got Mercury Retrograde from January 14th to February 3rd. And that respectively, Virgo Rising will be in your natal 6th house to your natal 5th house. And what does Mercury rule? But Mercury is the communicator. It is about the written and the spoken word. And with Mercury Virgo Rising in your natal 6th house, you're going to have an original approach to all matters connected with work, coworkers, employees, employers, and possibly connected with diet and well-being. Maybe you will jump back to the past to think about some of your health regimes or exercise regimes that you've wanted to start now. But whatever you do, it's going to be very original. Perhaps you may look into adopting that special pet right now. Then, once we have Mercury, the communicator, jumping back into your 5th house, then you're going to review all matters connected with, well, gambling, that rules fun in the 5th house, and perhaps you may do some fun traveling, connect with the kids or grandkids. Now, anytime we've got Mercury retrograde, you don't want to sign on the line. And yes, in this case, with both your 6th house and your 5th house Virgo rising, you may find there are some certain delays or frustrations in this area. But it's a great time to review, in this case, anything connected with work, health, exercise, or fun, kids, or anything connected with gambling or the such, especially your creativity. So there's some good here in this Mercury retrograde Virgo rising. Then we've got Mars in Sagittarius, and that will be for you, Virgo rising, in your natal 4th house. And the 4th house is a family, and Mars loves to be in Sagittarius, by the way, Virgo rising, because Mars rules Aries, and that is a fellow fire sign just like Mars in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. However, you must be careful that you don't become too agitated or frustrated, or you misplace your energy right now, especially connected with family matters or repairs. Perhaps you'll do some connections with real estate or investing, other 4th house connections. But because of the square to your rising sign, Virgo, just kind of take it easy and realize that Mars is very good in Sagittarius nonetheless, and in your natal 4th house. So just be careful of all those 4th house matters. Other than that, it should be fun with family and your home. So looking ahead, we've got Uranus direct in Taurus on February 18th. And for you, Virgo rising, that will be in your natal 9th house. And what is the 9th house? The 9th house is of long distance travel, foreign anything, and it's about higher learning and education. Also, the 9th house, similar to the 7th house, is about contracts. Now, you may have felt a bit held back lately with Uranus in the 9th house, with possible trips that you've wanted to take, or maybe you've discovered frustrations connected with learning or education or signing certain contracts. But now that the original Uranus is going to be in your ninth house, you're going to be full speed ahead with these matters. And especially if you have Taurus on your midheaven, which would be the cusp of the 10th house. So we could say you will have an original approach to your career and goals. And who knows, you may be looked at as someone who is very outspoken, freedom-loving, and original right now during the duration of Uranus in your ninth and possibly cusp of your 10th house. So that's very good. Then we've got Venus on January 29th. So for the majority or first half, we should say, of February, we've got Venus in Capricorn. Oh, that's so good for you, Virgo rising, because that jumps back to your 5th house. And what is the 5th house, Virgo rising? But Virgo rising, this is again the house of all connections with children, fun, gambling, travel, and creativity. So with sweet Venus there and making a fine connection to your rising sign, you will be very creative right now, especially during the time that Venus makes a trine to Uranus in your 9th, 10th house. Very creative, and you may get recognized right now locally, or who knows, nationally, internationally, Virgo rising, for your daring, original, and sweet approach to anything artistic. And it's very stylish. So this is also a time that you will spend great time with the kids and kids activities. You possibly might take some travels with the family, but it's all about fun. Maybe that gamble will pay off for you right now, Virgo rising. Very sweet place for you with Venus and Capricorn in your 5th house. So we've got Jupiter this year in Pisces. That's very sweet for you. Again, Virgo rising, since the expansion of Jupiter will be in your 7th house of relationships. So this year for you unattached Virgos, this will be a great year with plenty of opportunities to connect with the right suitor. If you are attached, then your marriage will be very fulfilling this year, and you will take steps to fulfill or create more abundance and happiness in your relationships. That also includes, Virgo rising, your connections with business and legal efforts. If you are involved with a lawsuit, for example, right now, that may fare very well for you. So there is an abundance of business and love and partnerships, and in a very compassionate style, I must add, Virgo rising, with Jupiter in Pisces in your 7th house. Now, we've also got Mercury, the communicator, with Saturn, and that will be in Aquarius mid-February, and then with Jupiter, which will then be, of course, in Pisces, the end of February to March 9th. Now, what is it when we've got Mercury, the communicator, in your 6th house, but now with Saturn, is anything connected with Saturn is representative of responsibility. Saturn is very grounded, very focused. And although Saturn may take a little fun out of what house it is placed, it is still very good because Saturn allows a steady approach, somewhat sobering wherever house it touches, but you can guarantee success because, especially now, Virgo rising with Saturn in original Aquarius in your 6th house, well, yes, there could be some feelings of burden or boringness, so to speak, connected with your 6th house. But Saturn is the slow and steady approach. You've got goals, and no matter what, especially with this original, unique, and fixed sign of Aquarius, you will reach the goals that you've got in mind. It may require hard work, but you will get there, Virgo rising. And the rewards, because Saturn is about karma, are great for you. And now with Mercury there, you are going to just keep your nose to the grindstone. Most of your ideas, yes, with coworkers or business associates will be very unique and original, but you will be adapting a very focused, serious outlook connected with serious Saturn at this time. Now, once we've got Mercury connected with Jupiter in Pisces, the end of February with March 9th. Oh, that's your 7th house, Virgo rising. And now your focus will be a little more sensitive, tender. And with Mercury there, you may find compassion, especially since the 7th house deals with the public. You may find compassion and sensitivity to those in need, and you may find yourself very popular connecting with those who perhaps need a touch of your empathy and kindness, because you are kind of like Pisces, Virgo, you're a healer. And so right now with Mercury and Jupiter together in your 7th house, you will be well sought out for your compassion and your sweetheart, and those who are very attractive to your very healing style are going to be very popular for you right now. But nonetheless, at the very least, it's very imaginative and a sensitive time dealing with the public and other people. Now, looking ahead, we've got late February to early March. We've got Venus, oh yes, with intense Pluto in Capricorn. Again, that's late February to early March. And Venus is going to be with Pluto, as Pluto has been transiting your 5th house for quite a while now, Virgo rising, but meeting up with very sweet, sexy, romantic Venus in conservative Capricorn. You're going to find you're going to feel very intense about fun and possibly dating. Maybe you want to find more suitors right now, and you're going to be very driven and focused on finding that perfect soulmate. Or perhaps you and your sweetheart, if you are attached, are going to take time out to really go all out for fun, romance, dating. And although Pluto is there, and yes, you could be a little possessive right now with Pluto and Venus, Virgo rising, it's still a good time for you to find what really makes you happy, 5th house, and to add a dash of creativity with that Venus and Pluto connection in your 5th, making a fine aspect to you, Virgo rising, right now. Then we look at Venus in original Aquarius in your 6th house, and that's mid-March, and then with Mars in April. So right now is a very good time, Virgo rising, to take what is Mars action with regards to going to get that perfect job, expressing your creativity, Venus in Aquarius in your 6th house, because whatever you have to say right now, Virgo rising, is going to be very unique. And anytime you've got Venus, that kind of sweetens the pot a little bit. So you could find yourself a leader in your workplace, or One other thing, Virgo rising, you will have to be careful with Venus in your sixth house of that diet, because right now you might like, well, those sweets or those good foods. So do be careful while Venus, even in Aquarius, transits your sixth house of food, diet, and the workplace. But hey, you might find that perfect job or be sought out for that raise. Now we've got Mars, Jupiter, Neptune conjunct all in Pisces mid-May. Wow, what a time for you, Virgo rising. We've got this seventh house connection going on this year. But when we've got Jupiter, the old ruler of Pisces, with the new ruler of Pisces, Neptune, and then we add a dash of action Mars there, wow. Again, if you are looking for the perfect sweetheart with Mars there and compassionate and yes, sweet and sour Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces, you will find an abundance of suitors, and you, Virgo rising, will be so attractive to them this year. And certainly if you are attached, what a fun year for you and your sweetheart, because Jupiter is about fun. It's about expansion. You and your dear heart may travel a lot together this year and find a lot of fun experiences, but especially during this time of mid-May. It's just going to be so much fun for you. Some of those legal contracts could be signed now, and certainly it's a very daring Mars and active time of dealing with the public legal matters and anything connected with partnership, business or personal. Good time for you, and with a dash of sweet compassion, Virgo rising. Now, looking ahead, we've got Jupiter flipping into Aries this year, and that is from May 10th, and that will be with Mars in Aries with Jupiter in June. So first in May, we've got Jupiter flipping into Aries, and then we've got it with Mars in June. So this is 8th house matters. And what is 8th house Virgo ascendant? But 8th house is about depth. It's about intimacy. And it is about intensity. The 8th house rules beginnings and it rules endings. It is about wills, trust, and the big money. So when you've got Jupiter flipping into your 8th house, these matters will be very highlighted. Maybe you want to get closure on an issue right now that it has been very deeply affecting you, 8th house. But Aries, you will find some kind of zest in looking over certain matters. And also 8th house, kind of like the 4th house, rules trust and wills, beginnings and endings. So this may be very important to you right now. And there could also be 8th house, a connection with real estate. But nonetheless, whatever you do once Jupiter, also the planet of prosperity, moves into your 8th house, will be deeply felt, and you will be very zestful about 8th house matters. And so we then look ahead. We've got from May 10th to June 3rd up. We've got another Mercury retrograde phase, and that goes from Gemini to Taurus, respectively, your 10th house of career and ambition and reputation, to your 9th house of travel and education, Virgo rising. So what does this mean? Well, as aforementioned, anytime we've got Mercury, the communicator, going retrograde. You don't want to sign anything. And right now we've got May 10th to June 3rd, Mercury in its own sign of Gemini. Now, this will be great for communicating to the boss that you want that raise, or maybe right now you're going to be extremely creative and extremely communicating about your desires. There's no holds barred, even with Mercury retrograde. You just have to be careful that you say the right thing or do the right thing right now, Virgo rising, and your communications are clear, connected with all creativity and anything to do with your reputation, career aims, and communications with those that are connected with some of your ambitions. If you're looking for a raise right now, make sure you make that clear, or your desires at the workplace or connected with a business very clear to those closest to you that work with you. Now, you also might look into the past for some of those aims that you put on the back burner. However, once Mercury flips back into Taurus. Taurus is very stubborn. And what is Taurus about? Virgo rising, which, by the way, is very compatible with your rising sign. But Taurus rules money. It rules security, and some would say it rules the creature comforts and food. And so right now, perhaps some of those foreign anything will be very attractive to you. Maybe you might take that long-awaited trip that you wanted to, and now you finally get around to doing it with Mercury flipping back into Taurus. But because Taurus is connected with the creature comforts and so on, right now you must be careful of some of your finance and money. Maybe there could be a loss while traveling because Mercury retrograde in Taurus can be a little bit frustrating, or maybe there will be some delays in travel. Or if it's on your midheaven, connected with your career. Who knows, maybe you might have to put off going back to school at some other time after the Mercury retrograde phase. Now, on June 4th, we've got Saturn in Aquarius. That 6th house emphasis again, Virgo rising, going backwards, retrograde. So the frustrations and delays will now be reconnected with your 6th house. So if you can't find that perfect job, don't you worry there now, Virgo rising. Thank goodness Mercury is always rather brief. However, it's always very unique and original in Aquarius. There could be delays in starting that health regime or the diet or anything connected with the 6th house. Maybe a little bit of frustration connected with pets or your coworkers, but don't worry, you're going to get through this just fine. Now, we've got, and again, that's June 4th, we've got on June 28th, we've got Neptune retrograde. Now, Neptune of all the planets is the one of deception, confusion. Now, Neptune has been in your 7th house for quite some time now, Virgo rising, so you're kind of used to it. You're probably during this duration not really sure of what or who you can trust at this time, whether it's your sweetheart and some of the people you've met up with. Maybe they're a little confusing to you, or you're just not sure about who to trust. And I have to be honest with you, Virgo rising, now that we've got Neptune now going retrograde on June 28th, that may just add a little bit to the confusion. Make sure, especially those that are closest to you, your significant other, or those that you just may be introduced to are being on the up and up right now. If there's something a little off or fishy about that individual, make sure you look into all the facts, because yes, Neptune retrograde can be rather deceptive. Make sure you get to the bottom of everything and make sure people are being very truthful to you during this phase. Now we've got retrograde Jupiter, and that goes from July 28th to November 23rd. So that will be in Aries, and that's again July 28th to November 23rd. So we are only talking 4 months, July to November. But what is Jupiter representative of Virgo rising? It's about the grandiose. It's about expansion. And sometimes wherever Jupiter is, has a tendency to exaggerate. So right now you may feel a little bit of frustrations with the 8th house. Right now you may feel like you feel very deeply and moved about all matters connected with intimacy, but you're not really sure if some of your feelings, 8th house, are misplaced. But you still have a lot of enthusiasm connected with 8th house matters, like opening up about your feelings to your sweetheart, or starting a will or a trust, or overseeing that right now, or beginning a relationship with someone, or opening up to someone, because what does 8th house rule? It rules Scorpio, and it's about depth. So right now you may be very enthusiastic about starting counseling, or really going all out to communicate your feelings with everyone around you. And remember, it's about beginnings and endings. So maybe you also want to close the book right now with someone and do some serious soul searching during this 4-month time frame, Virgo rising. Now we've got late May to mid-June. We've got Venus with Venus with Taurus. And Venus loves to be with Taurus, Virgo rising, and that makes a great trine connection with your rising sign. So right now, it's a good time to put your best foot forward. Wow. And especially now with Uranus, you will be looked at as somebody who is very outspoken, freedom loving, maybe a bit of a money manager if it's on your midheaven, Virgo rising, but certainly people will now sit up and listen to you. Now, it is in your 9th house, but again, you must check your personal birth chart, because if it is connected with your midheaven, wow, you're going to be especially popular now, especially with Venus and its own sign in a really great connection with your rising. That is just great, because Venus and Virgo are very grounded, and that will be late May to mid-June with Venus in Taurus. And hey, you might pick up some great culture and great travels and much to learn with Venus in Taurus in your 9th house. Now we've got Mars in Taurus. They've got that planet of action with Uranus in August. So with Mars, the planet of action, meeting up with Uranus, the planet of the unexpected but unique and original, the sudden. Do be careful that you don't become too outspoken right now, Virgo rising. Now, it does make a great trine to your rising sign, but anytime you've got Mars, the planet of action, meeting up with unexpected but Uranus unique Uranus, It can be a time of frustrations. Some little agitations may crop up now with connected with your travel, with you becoming more frustrated and wanting to speak your mind. Now, because of some of these frustrations, maybe some of those classes will have to be put off, and some of your creative ideas may be a little bit eccentric. But nonetheless, even then, do be cautious with Uranus in Taurus, which is very stubborn, kind of like Mars right now, Virgo. But hey, it's a great time to maybe publish that book or maybe sign that contract, because you, Virgo rising, will be very sought after for your originality for sure. Now, looking ahead, we've got our third Mercury retrograde phase, and that's from September 9th to October 2nd for you, Virgo rising. That will be in your natal second house with Libra, to you and your first house over your rising sign in Virgo. Now, Libra is representative what? Harmony. It's representative of balance, romance, love, and beauty, kind of like Taurus. And with Mercury retrograde in your second house of finance and of values, right now with Libra, with Mercury retrograde, you may feel like there are setbacks with financial matters. You just want harmony and balance, and you want to connect with others, perhaps with investments, or be careful about your valuables right now, Virgo rising, because that's another second house effect. Anything connected with our personal values and connected with like literally valuables. So be careful you don't lose anything. That includes money right now. But other than that, if you take a sensible approach to money matters, you'll be just fine, even with Mercury retrograde. Now, when it flips back into your first house, Virgo rising, especially, however, Virgo is elevated with Mercury in the sign of Virgo, and with retrograde Mercury going over the sign of Virgo, it's going to be like when it is in Gemini, a very sensitive time for you for all matters of communication, especially with your first house going over your rising sign, even more so, Virgo rising. So do be careful about the image that you project. I mean, with Mercury retrograde, you could be sought after as somebody who's certainly very different and very unique with that retrograde phase, but also make sure that there aren't any kind of petty or small-minded arguments right now, because we're talking retrograde Mercury, and it's over your first house. Be careful, speaking of which, that you look at the details. But right now, make sure, especially you, Virgo rising, that you make sure you are very clear about your image and your intention. Sidestep any disagreements at this time. Now, we've got Sun in Libra. Oh, look at this. We've got Sun in Libra. We've got Mars in Gemini. And we've got Saturn in Aquarius, and respectively, that will be in your second house, your 10th house of career. So second house of money and finance, 10th house of career, and 6th house of work. A complete air grand trine. And that is for all signs right now. That is going to be a highlight of 2022. For you, Virgo rising, you will have a great time connected with money and finance, your career, and your job prospects. Right now, during this period of time, in October, especially after the retrograde phase, especially after post-shadow retrograde, during the middle of October, and yes, maybe even during the time that Mercury is in Libra retrograde, but especially during mid-October with this air trine, your job prospects are going to be amazing, as is your communication with those closest to you, or really feeling very spirited about that health regime. And your money couldn't be better. You may find a lot of extra opportunities to bring in income, and it's going to be a great time to expand possibly on investments, and anything that you value will become very special to you at this time, Virgo rising, and anything connected with your career, your reputation. Wow, especially if you have Gemini on your 10th house, will be great. Wow, people are going to seek you out. But what does air represent also, Virgo rising? But air is detached. So this is a great time because you will not become too emotional in the areas of your finance or money, valuables. It won't be too much of an emotional time connecting with those that you do business with, or you may be very detached regarding some of your artistic ventures, and be very uniquely expressive. And you will be very detached and unemotional, connected with some of your coworkers and your feelings on, well, rather a daily mundane level. So this is a superstar time for you, Virgo rising. So creative, so financially and prosperity blessed with that grand air trine. Now, looking ahead, we've got Mars retrograde on October 30th in Gemini, and that will be for the gist of November. Now, Mars, what is Mars again, Virgo rising? It's about action. So you're going to be taking action to the best, especially artistically, and especially you're going to be very ambitious about people knowing just who you are. Whether you're starting a YouTube channel, you are connecting with social media and the internet, or one-on-one business negotiations with your associates. But because Mars is not in the greatest connection with your rising sign right now, Virgo rising, do be careful of the reputation, especially if you do have your midheaven or your MC in Gemini. Now, Mars is very much a communicator. It is one that likes to reach out to all types of people from all types of backgrounds. So you may feel right now in your career that you're meeting up with all kinds of people, but you will have to be under all circumstances with all these very interesting, varied individuals, and such a busy time for you with Mars in Gemini with your career. You will have to be careful you don't stumble and fall and say or do Mars the wrong thing. But hey, Mars is kind of fun in Gemini, and with that Mercury connection, you'll be connecting with more people more than ever right now, Virgo rising. So then we've got Saturn and Neptune, yippee, direct in October. That's Saturn in Aquarius in your 6th house. All work matters are now getting a green light, and anything connected with health and well-being. Then we've got Neptune direct. Okay, so yes, the planet of deception is still in your 7th house. You will still have to be careful if people are on the up and up with you. But with Neptune now direct, you can feel like you can really openly express your Neptunian Pisces sentiments with your sweetheart and with all those very good business ideas and legal contracts. Then we've got, looking at the end of October, we've got Jupiter flipping back into Pisces from Aries to Pisces. And then that will be the end of October. Jupiter flips back to Pisces to back into Aries on December 20th. So from October to December, so we're only talking a couple months here, Virgo rising, we've got first Jupiter back in Pisces, and that's retrograde. Okay, so although Neptune is going direct there, Jupiter is going to be taking a backwards look into your 7th house. So although you may feel people are a little bit more upfront, more honest, and yes, still very compassionate to you as you are to them, perhaps even a little generous and charitable. It also indicates with Jupiter retrograde now, you may feel some of your luck and your prosperity is a little stalled right now, connected with your sweetheart. Maybe some of those travel plans or fun, outgoing adventures will have to be put on the back burner with Jupiter there. But it's a time to what, Virgo rising? It is a time to reflect with your sweetheart and all your business associates about all your Jupiter and Pisces brilliant creative ideas. And again, it's only for a couple months, but on December 20th, we've got Jupiter going back into zesty Aries in your 8th house. So now you're going to feel very forward looking about all matters connected with your deep feelings and anything, again, connected with beginnings, endings, wills, and trusts. And you will be especially lucky, possibly with investments, or believe it or not, with Jupiter and Aries there, Virgo rising, anything connected with big money and prosperity. Now, then we've got Venus in Scorpio in November, and that will be connected with your 3rd house, and that will be, it will be November of 2022, Venus in Scorpio, and that will make a trine, oh how sweet, Virgo rising, to Pisces Neptune. And possibly during that retrograde phase of Jupiter. So you've got this Scorpio Pisces connection. Another highlight for you, Virgo rising, because Scorpio and Pisces are healers and they are very compassionate, and Scorpio, especially Scorpio and Pisces, besides being healers and being sensitive water sign, they also are good with the psychical, the metaphysical, and the spiritual. And Scorpio is about depth, intensity. Now, for you, Virgo rising, Scorpio Venus makes a beautiful blessed sextile to your rising sign. And this is going to be in your 3rd house. So any of your communications written right now or spoken will be positive. This might be a time at the end of 2022 you think about getting that new vehicle. And with Scorpio and Neptune in Pisces, the deception will be a little bit lessened right now. Scorpio kind of helps Pisces out with your 7th house. And with the 3rd house, what else does 3rd house rule? It rules neighbors and it rules vicinity. So that your vicinity. So you might meet a new friend that is who knows, your neighbor or somebody while you're going out to that art fair at this time or similar. And hey, take heed of all intuitive dreams, intuitions, and any creative thoughts that you have. Write them down, third house, because you will find a lot of very good Pisces, Scorpio insights right now, Virgo rising. Now, finally, we've got to finish 2022. We've got Venus in Sagittarius, and that will be in your natal fourth house of the family and the house. We've got Mars at the top of your chart in Gemini about your career and your reputation. And then we got a final square off to Neptune in Pisces. So there's a little mutable T-square going on between Sagittarius in your fourth family house and the house of the house. And we've got Mars and very communicative and yet versatile, action-oriented Gemini. And then we've got Neptune in a little bit of the deceiver and the confuser, but very sensitive Neptune in Pisces. So the message is right now, there's going to be a little confusion connected with family. Be careful of any kind of petty arguments or frustration with home repairs or renovation. And just make sure that all your business ideas to your fellow associates and creativity is very clear, because Neptune in your seventh may have a tendency to confuse things a little bit. Always in doubt with Neptune, apply sensitivity. And this is in all the areas of where this T-square is applied. In your fourth house, 10th house, and 7th house of public awareness and legal issues. Other than that, it is a mutable T-square. So within the mutable T-square, there is much in the way of flexibility. And by chance, Virgo rising for you this year, that will be the theme. And especially to surmise, connected very much with the 7th house. It's about partnerships this year, fun, and expanding your life with meeting and greeting new people and expanding on all relationships, and especially with the 10th and 9th house efforts. You may be considering going back to school or higher learning, or really taking charge of your reputation and putting yourself out there in a very communicative style with the Gemini 10th house. And with the 6th house emphasis, who knows, you may be starting a new career or starting a new job, or hey, it's a great year for a diet, health, and exercise matters. But no matter what, for the year 2022 Virgo rising, what a year it will be. So put your best foot forward, Virgo rising, and hey, 2022 will be not only rewarding, but like many, memorable for you. If you'd like to get in touch with me, my contact information is down below. I give one-on-one readings and written reports. Please subscribe to this channel and press the bell notification. Until next time, many, many blessings.